In late January, massive oil tankers loaded with Russian crude began navigating the freezing dark waters of the Baltic Sea. Two of these specific vessels, the Extra Titan and the SIS Max Giorgio NB, were carrying immense payloads. Their holds contained millions of barrels of crude oil, the unrefined petroleum that serves as the raw material for gasoline and diesel. This map shows their planned maritime route. They departed the Baltic Sea with a locked-in destination, the eastern port of Rizhao, China. This voyage followed a predictable pattern. For months, China had been aggressively stockpiling heavily discounted Russian oil to build up its domestic energy reserves. The buyers were set and the logistics were mapped. However, a sudden course correction fractured the entire timeline mid-journey. Maritime tracking data reveals a sudden shift in mid-March. 7 massive Russian tankers abruptly abandoned their projected Chinese route, executing a synchronized U-turn mid-ocean. Their new destinations locked in, New Mangaluru and Sikka ports on the western coast of India. Rerouting 7 fully loaded oil tankers mid-ocean carries an immense financial cost. It raises a critical question. Why did India suddenly intercept 30 million barrels of oil that were already promised to China? The logistical pivot was a calculated move to prevent a massive domestic energy shortfall. To understand the interception, we have to look at the Middle East. Escalating military tension between the United States and Iran was threatening to destabilize the entire region. Recent attacks were landing directly on major energy infrastructure. Strikes were actively threatening massive production sites like Qatar's Ras Laffan facilities. Iran's own South Pars gas fields were also caught in the crossfire. This physical damage to the fields created an expectation of massive supply drops in the global market. These localized missile strikes and damaged pipelines create a domino effect. When production sites burn, the global energy supply chain fractures. This map highlights India's primary geographical vulnerability, the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow shipping route that Iran has essentially blocked. The flow of resources through this choke point is staggering. While it carries 20% of the world's total oil, it is responsible for 50% of India's crude oil, LNG, or liquefied natural gas, and LPG, which is liquefied petroleum gas. That 50% dependency is critical because India relies on foreign imports to satisfy 90% of its total domestic energy consumption. With the Hormuz route blocked, India faced a mathematical certainty. The country was staring down a catastrophic collapse of its national energy grid. This line chart shows India's position at the start of the year. Following new trade deals with the US, India had dropped its Russian oil imports down to just 21%. While India stepped back, China moved in. They hoarded massive reserves of discounted Russian oil for their own grids. Facing the Hormuz crisis, India executed an urgent diplomatic pivot. They negotiated a temporary waiver from the United States to bypass specific trade sanctions. This waiver authorized India to purchase Russian oil that was already sitting on the water mid-transit. India leveraged its relationship with the US to gain the specific legal flexibility needed to secure this emergency supply. The strategy worked. The Extra Titan docked at New Mangaluru on March 21st, and the SIS Max Giorgio NB arrived at Jamnagar on March 25th. This influx of 30 million barrels in a single week directly averted domestic fuel shortages across the country. India secured its own energy reserves while simultaneously reducing the supply chain volume available to China. This maneuver shows that in a volatile market, security is found in logistical flexibility and the ability to pivot supply lines on short notice.